Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura, and today I am doing my February wrap-up. So welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today I'm just going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of February. I read a total of 11 books, but today is the 27th, and I am almost done with another book, so we're just going to pretend it's 12 because I'm going to finish it tomorrow, if not tonight. So I read 12 books. I'm also in the middle of 4 others that I will talk about later because I have the attention span of a flea and I have to be reading several books at once. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. I had 4 5-star reads. I had 1 4-star read. I had 5 3-star reads, and I had 1 2-star read, unfortunately. So this was a pretty good month as far as what I read, but not great. I generally read closer to 20 books a month, and when I say closer to 20, I mean not 20, but like 18. This month was just kind of slow, and I get that it also, is a shorter month, but the beginning of the month, I felt just kind of out of whack. I had a really busy month between work and just stuff I had planned, so that's not really something I like to do. I'm a homebody, and I don't like being super busy, and I was in February, so unfortunately I didn't read as much as I would have liked to, but I am happy with the things that I read, so with that, let me tell you about them. So the first book that I read, and I did speak briefly about it in my last month's wrap-up because I had already started it in January, is Mame by Jessica George. This is absolutely stunning. This follows a woman who is living in London, and she's the caretaker for her father who has Parkinson's, and he's going downhill rapidly. Her mother lives in Ghana. Well, she visits Ghana a lot and isn't home in London to help her. So her mom comes back from Ghana, and Maddie, the main character, decides that she's going to move out for the first time at age 25. She's kind of just been really sheltered her whole life, and sheltered in a way that she's also had to be like an adult even when she was a kid. So because no one else in her family would take responsibility, and she just felt like that's what she needed to do because someone did. So this was a beautiful story. There was a lot of grief. It did deal with grief pretty heavily. There's just a lot of emotion. This is definitely a slice of life type book, so it's not super plot heavy. Definitely more focus on the characters, and especially Maddie, the main character. I absolutely loved this. It's been getting rave reviews, so I definitely recommend picking it up if you like that kind of book. This also was one of my 5-star reads. The next book that I read, this is an upcoming release, is What Have We Done by Alex Finlay. So this was a fine book, but to me, it was mismarketed. This is not a thriller in the way that I think of a thriller. This is a crime novel, and to me, that's not what I wanted to read. So it wasn't a favorite for me. This follows 3 kids who were all in the same group home growing up, and they did something bad when they were teenagers, and they've kind of all gone their separate ways. One of them is like a housewife with a past as an assassin. One is a rock star, and one is a reality TV producer who has a serious gambling addiction. And so basically they find out that someone's after them. They all kind of have to get back together, even though they haven't seen each other in like 20 plus years, to stop whoever's trying to kill all of them, because they know like their secret of what they did. So this, it's just not a thriller. I mean, some people could say that like a crime novel is maybe like a subgenre of thrillers, but I disagree. There wasn't a ton of like mystery, and honestly, I was just kind of over it pretty early on. I didn't really know where the story was going, and I just didn't find it interesting. The ending also had like 30 twists in a row, which I just found kind of, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of overkill, and like, you're doing too much, bro. Like, if you have to do this much, maybe you're doing it wrong. So anyways, that was a 3-star read. Definitely not a favorite of mine, but not like a bad book. Just not for me. The next book I read was The Friendship Breakup by Annie Catherine. This, unfortunately, was my 2-star read. I basically was like rage reading by the end of this. It's a bummer because this is someone I know from Instagram, and so I wanted to love this book, but unfortunately it was just really not for me. This follows a mom who is basically being shunned by her best friend, and she doesn't understand why. And in such, she's also being shunned by everyone else in like the soccer mom group, and she like just doesn't understand why. She keeps trying to get these women to like her, and they just don't. And she's like throwing over the top parties, and just nobody wants to hang out with her, and she doesn't get it. The first 70% of this book was incredibly boring. The last 30% was just like over the top ridiculous. All of the women are incredibly shallow, and just I don't understand why our main character Fallon would even want to be their friend, because they're all like nightmare women. And I mean, I guess if your kids are friends with their kids, it's like you want to get along, but I just can't imagine being so desperate for friends that I would hang out with women like this. There's also some misogyny that goes unchecked that I didn't love. So yeah, overall this was just a miss for me. I don't think I've ever given a book 1 star, maybe once, but like if I finished it, I give it 2 stars, and I did finish this, but it was kind of pretty close to a 1 star. Yeah, I mean, you guys know that I love my mommy drama books, but this was just a hard pass. This did not do anything for me. Next, I read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror novel about a girl who lives in Idaho. She is part of an indigenous tribe. She refers to herself, and the author is also indigenous, but she refers to herself throughout the book as Indian. So I'm probably just going to say that because that's what she calls herself. And, you know, I want to respect what the author had written, but just know that I'm not saying that for a reason other than that's what the author wrote. So it's about this Indian girl in Idaho. She's obsessed with slasher movies, and she's convinced that a slasher movie is going to like take place in her small town in Idaho. And this new girl moves to town. There is this community on the other side of the big Indian lake that is going to be a new development with all these rich people. And Jade, she is convinced that there's going to be a slasher movie, and it's going to all take place on the 4th of July. And when I say there's going to be a slasher movie, there's going to be a murder, a slasher situation. And she's got to like prep the final girl and all of that. So this took me a really long time to get through. It's just really slow and kind of all over the place. It's not super easy to read straight through. There's also an incredibly high number of slasher references, which I like slasher movies. I like horror movies. So like this to me wasn't a terrible thing, but it did get to be a little tedious and just a little like, okay, we get it. By the end, I almost kind of didn't even know what was going on. And I mean, maybe I could take some of the blame for that, but like personally, I just think that it was kind of all over, and I just couldn't follow, and I didn't really care enough to try really hard to figure out what exactly happened. I gave this 3 stars, and I mean, I'm sure someone out there will love this, but for me, it was just okay. While I am on the subject, I did also read the sequel, and when you say, why did you read the sequel when you didn't like the first one? The sequel just came out. It's called Don't Fear the Reaper, and I had already committed to reviewing it, so I, wanted to read the first one. And the second one was basically more of the same. I think it was a little easier for me to get through, but at the same time, by the end, I was confused again and just not really all that invested. So that was also a 3-star read for me. There's going to be another one. I'm probably going to skip it, but I mean, if you like slashers and horror books, definitely you might want to give it a try. The next book I read is We Spread by Ian Reid. This is a horror book, but like in the most unique and special way. This is a book that was written by the same author as I'm Thinking of Ending Things. If you've read that or if you've watched the Netflix movie, you know that it's just really creepy, crazy, out there kind of horror. I do think I had talked about this at some point on here, but we're going to talk about it again. This follows a woman named Penny who is kind of getting up there in age. Her partner of a long time had passed away and she's been living by herself. And one day she has a fall and her landlord is like, you can't live by yourself anymore. You are going to get hurt because she hit her head. And basically if he hadn't come to fix something in her apartment, I think she would have just been unconscious for who knows how long. Her landlord, Mike, says, okay, your partner had arranged for you to go to this retirement community assisted living kind of place. And she's like, I don't want to do that. But he like insists. And so she ends up going and they keep telling her it's all paid for. It's going to be so well taken care of. And as she starts to like move in and live here, lots of just like creepy, weird things are happening. People are telling her like, you said this, you did this. And she's like, I don't remember doing or saying that. So it is just kind of creepy. The horror part of it to me was like not being able to tell your own mind what's real and what's not as a part of aging. And I mean, I'm obviously not like elderly, but I'm turning 35 in a couple months. And to me, I was like, I feel this a lot because I don't know why no other age has hit me like 35 is feeling like an old person. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good book. I definitely recommend it. You can read this one really quick. It was pretty easy and it was definitely a page turner. I needed to know what happened because it was just so like out there. You want to know so badly what is going on. Is Penny like forgetting stuff or is everyone else like gaslighting her? It was so good. Loved it. Definitely recommend. That was a 5-star for me. The next one I read is Against the Current by Olivia Matthews. This is a cozy mystery. So the main character, Lindsay, is opening a bakery in New York and she ends up being like just down the road from another bakery, but like they're really not very similar. So on the first day that she's opened, the other bakery owner comes to her bakery and is like, you gotta stop. Like he's all mad that she has opened this place nearby and says like, you're gonna be so much competition, like I'm gonna get you shut down. And Lindsay ends up calling him out in front of everyone that's in the restaurant and kind of fussing at him. So the next day he turns up dead and all anybody has to say is, oh yeah, we saw Lindsay berating him after he threatened her restaurant. So she becomes a prime suspect. And cozy mystery ensues. We all kind of know how these situations go and how they kind of all end up, but I still like it. I'm not the biggest cozy mystery fan, but I absolutely loved this. This was such a fun read. I couldn't put it down. I listened to the audiobook and I was just always trying to find little pockets of my day to listen to it. I cannot recommend this enough. I had such a fun time reading this and it made me want to try more cozy mysteries because, I mean, I've read some and they're fine, but I'm like, maybe I haven't been reading like the best of the best because I thought this was fantastic and I'm so excited to have a series to like get into. Unfortunately, this is the first one, so I don't have like a backlist to go through, but I do recommend this if you like cozy mysteries, and honestly, even if you don't, maybe give it a try because it was a blast to read. This was 5 stars, and I am as shocked as you are that I gave a cozy mystery 5 stars. The next book I read is The Gifted School by Bruce Holsinger. I don't even barely want to talk about this because I don't even really remember it. It took me forever to read. It's like 500 pages of suburban mommy drama, which again, usually I like, but this was so boring and just, oy. This is about exactly what it sounds like. It's about this small community in Colorado has a gifted school that's just about to be opened, and it causes a rift among this friend group and their children. This is like 550 pages. Approximately 200 of those did not advance the plot or really make any bit of difference. There was like no character development, and the characters honestly were pretty much all unlikable. The end has this ridiculous plot twist that I was just like so over by the time I got to it. And this is silly, but this drove me nuts. There's two characters in this book named Emma. One is like Emma Quinn, and the other is like Emma Zeller or something. And then they spend the whole book calling them Q and Z. I don't really know and it wasn't relevant to the plot. It wasn't like there was some like great Emma mix up at some point during the book. It was just like not a thing. Maybe just give your characters different names. I don't know. It wasn't my fave. And again, the length, I was just like kind of angry by the end that I had spent so much time reading this super average book. I gave this 3 stars. I had high hopes, but missed the mark for me. The next book I read is The Goddess Effect by Sheila Yasmin Marikar. This was a 5-star. This book was so fun. This reminded me a lot of Happy and You Know It by Laura Hankin. If you've read that, you might kind of know like where it's going, but it's about this Indian woman who moves from New York out to LA after she loses her job, and she's got her mother is like I've read enough books now, I feel like I can say it. The stereotypical like Indian mother. She has very high standards for her daughter and doesn't understand like, why aren't you working? What's going on? She ends up moving into this like co-op type place where she can live for free while she gets her legs under her, and she starts going to workout classes at a studio called The Goddess Effect, and she kind of gets like sucked into the cult of this workout program and like the lifestyle that they preach about and that they promise, and it goes from there. She ends up like wanting to work for them instead of working in journalism, which is her background, and it just like escalates. I thought this book was so much fun, such a blast to read, and I don't really know why I haven't heard much about it. It came out in October, I think. I had so much fun. Like, I could not put it down. It was so great. And the end is just like off the wall bonkers, but in a good way. It's just because you're already like kind of suspending disbelief, but it was so fun. It was great. And like if you just like that kind of like mystery, culty, but not like thriller mystery, just like there's something weird going on and I need to know what it is, this is a book for you. This was 5 stars. Highly recommend. Next is Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell. So I really liked this for about 80%. And the end, I just kind of started to lose interest and think it was just a little unbelievable and twists for the sake of twists, not really making the story better. This is about a college professor who basically is falling under the publish or perish, looking to get tenure, and he needs to write a book. He's not having much luck, and then one day his student submits her thesis, which is a novel. And this novel is apparently incredible. The next day after she gives it to him, she disappears. And he ends up publishing it as his own and being able to get tenure and all that, or he's coming close to getting tenure. And then like 2 years later, she reappears in his life. And at the same time, police come to his door and say, hey, the events in your book are very, very similar to events that happened in this tiny college town in Kentucky, I think. And so then he becomes a suspect, and he's like, but wait a second, like, I stole this book? How does he, like, deny that he knows something and how similar this is, including details that were not released to the public, while not revealing that he stole the book? So, yeah, it was really good until the end. I just thought the end got a little crazy. And I also am, maybe I'm the crazy one, I don't know. The book within the book is basically exactly what happened in real life to this girl and this friend of hers. And I just don't understand how that is such a unique and wonderful, amazing plot. Like, I would feel like someone would have taken notice beforehand They also mentioned several times that this is like a super small college town, and if someone got murdered, you would know about it. I mean, I went to college in a pretty small town, and if someone got murdered, especially anywhere near the campus, we'd know. So I don't know. I just found that kind of unbelievable. And I don't know. I just think it was pretty average. I probably will forget about it now. This was 3 stars. I mean, it was fine. There's better thrillers to read. Better thrillers to read, like Follow Me by Kathleen Barber. This is about an influencer who moves from New York to Washington, D.C., and she starts to hang out with a friend of hers from college. And the whole time we're kind of getting this ominous male hymn voice and is just straight up stalking her. I feel like I just want to say, that's all I want to say. This was so great. If you love like influencer culture kind of book, she does have another job too, working in a museum. She's not solely an influencer, but if you like that kind of book, it's so perfect for that. She lives in this like basement apartment, and she's having trouble with like the landlord's grandson keeps like creeping on her, and it's just so great. I had so much fun reading this and could not stop. I like had to finish it. It's also on Scribd if you have it. Great app, highly recommend. I've only recently discovered it, and I wish I hadn't been sleeping on it all this time. But yeah, I think this is a great book. Definitely recommend. I gave this 4 stars. I can't honestly even really remember why I didn't give it 5. I think it just got a little bogged down at the end by some like cliches, but overall, really solid read, really interesting thriller, and I loved how like creepy and ominous the vibes were. So definitely want to pick up. And the last book that I read / am kind of still reading is Somebody's Daughter by Ashley Ford. This is a memoir about a woman who has grown up without her father her whole life because he's incarcerated, and when she's an adult, he gets out. This is a really sad, hard book. There's a lot of child abuse, there is some sexual assault, and it's just a really hard book to read, but I'm enjoying it, learning her story, and it is pretty short, so that's good. That also is my one nonfiction book for the month, and it's pretty good. I'm not positive what I'm gonna rate it. I probably won't actually rate it just because I feel weird rating someone's memoirs and like what their life story essentially. But for the Goodreads rating, if it's a 5-star, I'll give it a 5-star so other people pick it up. But I'm really liking it. It's, yeah, definitely a life that I know nothing about, and like is very, very different from my own. So it's really interesting to read, and my heart breaks for this little girl as we like learn what growing up for her was like. As I mentioned, I'm also in the middle of 4 books because of course I am. Those are I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay, Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne, The Favor by Adele Griffin, and Our Old Friend Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. My progress on that is not great, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna finish it this year. It's okay if it's not like on the exact timetable I originally thought. It's gonna happen. That's all we need to say. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Here's hoping that March is a little bit better month for me as far as what I'm reading enjoyability-wise and also quantity. I hope that I get a little more reading done because, you know, it's like one of my favorite things to do, and I've just had such a busy month. It's been impossible to find time. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this video, and I would love it if you would subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!